Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at a topic titled The Role of HR in Organizational Restructuring and Business Continuity. Our facilitator for today is Fola Vincent, who is a regular on this prestigious platform. And I would still like to just read briefly about his profile for the benefit of some of us who may not be well acquainted with him. Fola Vincent has over 22 years in HR consulting, corporate training, and leadership. He has a Bachelor's of Science, a Master's Education, and is currently a PhD scholar in personal psychology, University of Ibadan. Furthermore, he's a certified business psychology practitioner. He has an MBA in business innovation, growth, and sustainability, trained agile and Prince2 project management practitioner. He's a certified Google data analyst. Of course, he's senior professional in human resource international SPHR. He is a Maxwell leadership coaching practitioner, facilitator John Maxwell, application reader, Mandela Washington Fellowship. He was also a former lead faculty with the FCMB. Ladies and gentlemen, he's an ex-principal consultant with Primera Consult, former L&D consultant with EZ37 Solutions. He's the president and co-founder of Palm Lead Africa, convener EQ Empowered Workforce and Re-Invent Program. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking on the topic, the role of HR in organizations and business continuity, let's welcome Fola Vincent, who is the lead learning and performance and culture, Novabank. You have the floor, sir.
I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Adeosun. It's my honor to be here again. And I love this platform whereby we empower each other with, new trends and how to be more successful in Asia. I'm so happy to be here. And I want to say good evening to everyone listening to me. I don't know where you're joining us from. Please, you can just go to the comment section and let's know where you're joining us from. Without wasting much of our time, we are going to be looking at the role of HR in organizational restructuring and business continuity. And the core reason for this is to find the way to drive change, ensure resilience, and also create more impact have been introduced. So I will just go straight to why we are here today. And I will also try to clarify that I have just 12 years in HR, as HR practitioner. And I hope that since our prophet has already spoken ahead of me, I know that very soon I will be celebrating 22 years. So I want to say thank you to Dr. Adeosun once again. So today we have three core objectives. Number one is to understand HR's role in restructuring and business continuity. Then number two is to explore strategies for managing workforce changes. Number three, to learn best practices for ethical layoff and employee retention. The most important thing around that one is to just learn some of the best practices as it focuses on restructuring and business continuity. So let's quickly move into the objective one, whereby we want to understand HR's role in restructuring and business continuity. So the question now would be, what is restructuring and what is business continuity? So let's quickly look to all of this. What is organizational restructuring? Organizational restructuring involves redesigning roles, responsibilities, or structures to meet strategic objectives. As we speak right now, that might be what is happening in your organization. There are a lot of changes that are occurring right now that necessitate restructuring. It could be major an acquisition. It could be because of market changes. It could be because of cost pressure, technological advancement, or probably business growth or downsizing. The most important thing that is so constant in our organization is what we refer to as change. And the question is, how do you manage change? So there are different organizational restructuring strategies, and I will also be using all of these to create some kind of practical area that probably organization has been doing, or probably the one your organization is currently doing right now as regards to restructuring. Now let's look at the first one, growth. These are the factors that necessitate restructuring. If organizations are growing, and I want us to look at, let's look at Dangote right now. Dangote Cement, as we speak right now, they are moving seriously into other African countries. You could see what is happening with their refinery. And even beyond Dangote, there are other organizations, probably your own organization. You are currently growing, and before you know what is happening, the manpower is increasing, and there is a need for you to start sourcing, start training, start doing so many things. You know, your customers are expanding, and you are moving from one location to another location. So what do you mean by growth? So a growth is a stage where organizations focus on expanding their operations, market share, and customer base. It involves increasing the workforce, like you want to scale your operations or you want to enter a new market. Sorry, somebody is speaking there. You might need to mute your mic if possible so that we can get the best from this training. So two things could happen on the growth. Number one is could lead to shortage of staff, and especially there could be a lot of skill gap to cover because of growth. Then as you grow, you begin to have some basic issue with your culture and value. So automatically there will be a need for restructuring. Let me quickly, just think about what is happening in your organization now. You see a shortage of staff whereby you have to drive, you have to recruit almost every single day, or you have to train almost every single day. Two things there. Is either you buy or you build. So the another area is issue of culture. As you are getting new people into the organization, you know, before you know what is happening, there will be a culture change, culture shock, and you have a lot of things to actually deal with. Then, you know, a lot. So let's quickly move into concentration. This one focus on strategy where organizations abandon unprofitable products or services to concentrate on their core profitable, offerings. A lot of organizations, as I speak to you now, they are doing a lot of strategy to look at products they need to continue with, and services they actually need to stop. It might be happening in your organization as I speak to you right now. And what do they do? They try to streamline operations, reallocate resources to high performing area. And during this period, two things can happen. Number one, there could be so much of employees, like I supply of employees such a way that they don't need them. So they need to see that as, okay, since we are cutting some product or we are stopping some services, then what happens to the staff? Do we let them go? Should we sack them, or should we do a kind of redistributions within the organization? So a lot. So, and by the time you are trying to do a kind of restructuring around the talent or around department or operations, it could affect morale. And beyond that, there could be some kind of knowledge management issues. For example, probably you have built your operation around manufacturing of a particular product, and you already have your, how do I put it now? Um, your knowledge, your asset knowledge, which has to do with the knowledge of that process, and some of your staff has already learned those knowledge. And the question now is, do you let them go or do you let them stay? And don't forget, if you let them go, they could replicate the same products that you are doing because they already know how to do that and they can do it. And I think I learned something like that time in ShopRite, about a recipe of how to make bread and some other things. So some of their staff actually left. And before you know this happening, people start producing bread exactly like ShopRite. Knowledge management is key. And immediately you let them go, they are out of your bond. We don't even know how your data protection policy could be like. We don't know the issue of your copyright or how you are managing all of your assets. So all of this could be an issue by the time you're letting them go. The same thing Apple, Unilever, they have to change some of their products and they streamline it into something that they have the advantage on. The same thing happened with Coca-Cola. They let some products go while they focus on other products. Now, the third one has to do with downsizing. This is a strategy aimed at reducing the workforce or resources to improve productivity and profitability. Most of the time, when it comes to downsizing, it has something to do with resources. Probably they don't have money to pay more staff. We should be able to know what happened during the financial depression or economic depression in the whole wide world. We have one in like around 2004, the one that happened in 2015. We all know what happened then. So they have to sack a lot of people because they can no longer pay salary. They could no longer maintain some, operations. So they have to actually let people go so that they could leverage on their valuable resources to enhance productivity and also profitability. And I will not lie to you, it actually happened last year. You could see the way majority of these big giant media are sacking people. In fact, I had some news recently. There could be another mass, downsizing in no distance time now. I could remember in 2022, a lot of bank, they act to sack so many people. And I'm also seeing some bank right now, like First Bank, doing a lot of restructuring and try to lay off their uh, senior management. And the same thing is happening in CBN. A lot is going on, downsizing and, a lot of restructuring is going on. So most of the time, downsizing usually come with crisis, legal issues, morale, and poor engagement. And I will not lie to you, it's a critical moment when your organization has to enter the stage of downsizing. The next one has to do with merger and acquisition. We call it M&A. So the integration of two organizations through the merger or acquisition through takeover. So two things could happen. It's either you merge with another organization or you acquire another organization. I think this one is happen a lot in banking, and it's going to happen in the next 2 years because as we speak right now, banks are into or refers to as capitalization. So this time we'll be hearing merger and acquisition, although it happens almost, let me say, every year within the banking industry. I don't know the industry that you work. I'm very sure that there could be a lot of merger happening over there and probably acquisition of other companies. So at this level, there are so many things you'll be dealing with, such as culture, anxiety, compensation, and benefit. As a matter of fact, you have to do a lot of background check, work with your legal officers, and ensure that you are getting the best from merger and acquisition. And, so these are the area of the organizational restructuring. I want to believe that you understand what we mean by restructuring through all this four level of strategy: growth, concentration, downsizing, the merger and acquisition. Let's quickly move into business continuity. Business continuity ensures that critical functions can continue during and after the disruption. Immediately you hear about business continuity, one thing should come into your mind, and that is disruption. So a lot of things could cause disruption in the business, such as natural disasters, like we have in times of the pandemic, workplace violence, operational disruptions. There could be emergence of a new organization that caused a lot of disruption in your organization. A lot has been happening right now. For example, about 10 years ago, people usually have home videos, whether they sell CDs and they sell a lot of, all this kind of video. Let me just mention CD because we are all aware of CDs. And as I speak right now, Netflix is taking over. So everybody just watch Netflix and they don't have any issue to go probably to cinemas or any other places like that. So those are disruptions. A lot of disruption is happening. Innovation, technology is taking over. And one that we are so aware that we are familiar with is the COVID-19 pandemic that happened in 2019 and 2020 down to 2021. And I really want to ask you, How did your organization survive COVID-19? Let me quickly go to the comment section and see it. Drop in the comment section because I want to say that. How did you survive COVID-19? Sorry, I would like to put off my video so that because my network is telling me that it's low. Probably if I off the video, we could get from it. So, how did your organizations actually survive COVID-19? I can remember during COVID-19, they have to ask some of us to go back home. Some organizations were actually paying, you know, salary, some are still paying full salary. Why some have to say, see, come, we can't cope. We have to let everybody go. And we, like, I usually tell people, let's assume that another COVID-19 happened because it has started already. See what is happening in China. Can your organization survive it? So, and there are so many processes to business continuity whereby you have to do a lot of risk assessment. Some, it could be in terms of technology, it could be in terms of data, it could be in terms of massive innovation occurring in your industry, and to the extent that your organization is being threatened by competitors or by changing in the demands of the customers. So there could be contingency planning, crisis management, and employee well-being. We're going to talk about this. There are major challenges in restructuring and business continuity, and you need to pay attention here so that you will know how to come up with HR strategy and on how to mitigate against restructuring risk and also business continuity disruptions. Number one is lack of understanding, unpreparedness, and readiness. As I speak to you now, if you do readiness survey or preparedness survey of organization in terms of restructuring and business continuity, you will discover that most organizations are not ready. For example, some organizations that will be at risk. For example, some organizations as we speak right now, they do full on-site. Nobody works from home, no hybrid, is full on-site. So let's assume that another COVID-19 comes. We don't know whether it's going to come because it's already happening in China now. We are not sure whether it's going to get to this place. How prepare is such organization to business disruptions? Then number two, employee resistance to change. I could remember when during the period after the COVID-19, most organization in terms of productivity, it was coming down. And by the time employees were asked to come back, they were resisting those changes. And we all know what happened in our organization regarding productivity and employee resistance to any changes you put in place to boost productivity. Then we have the workforce skill mismatches. It's still happening today. And some of us, what we might be facing in an organization could be lack of skills, whereby you usually think that averagely, probably in terms of enterprise workforce skills, your organization could be around 40% or 30% or even below 20% if you actually do the competency assessment. Then the number four is communication gaps during crisis because people could not leverage technology because they are not prepared. Then they fail in terms of communication. That the next one is poor financial resilience. Some organizations do not have the enough financial strength to actually pay salaries or to purchase technology and digital capabilities for the organization. Then we have the employees disengagement and bad morale. We all know what happened using the COVID-19 examples. There were a lot of disengagement. People were always clamoring. I could remember when I was studying FCMB, people were telling us that, hey, we need physical training. We can no longer do virtual training. But hey, change has come. Everybody has pivoted to, how do I put it, into virtual training. Look at what we are doing today. But some people are saying they are disengaged and they need a physical touch in terms of training for them to be reconnect. Then we have poor recovery and control management. Some do not even have recovery plan or even control plan for the organization. As I speak to you now, some organization actually disappeared. They were nowhere to be found again. Then some has inadequate data management and protection in terms of using the cloud, data cloud engineering, all of this stuff. They do not have the, how do I put it? They do not really have the the capacity to manage their data. Imagine if there is a fire in your organization. As I speak to you now, do you have your data in the cloud? Do you have a strong backup? So what happens? So before you know what is happening, you begin to enter regulators' book and they begin to penalize your organization because of the inadequate data management and protection. Then we have the insufficient tools and technology. So these are the major challenges when it comes to business continuity and restructuring. I don't know the one that your organization is facing right now, but you can put it in the comment section so that we get to see that. Now, I have this story to tell about the boiling frog. I will quickly read it. Then we ask one or two questions. I will ask one or two questions. A frog fell into a pot of water while it was sitting on the stove. Why it wasn't his intention to be stuck in a pot of water, he didn't try to escape. He was comfortable enough as he was. The flame was turned on to begin boiling the water. As the water's temperature began to rise, the frog was able to adjust his body temperature accordingly. So he remained in the pot without trying to do anything to change the situation. So most of the time, people do not change situation even when change calls for it. So people feel that, oh, we are comfortable and we love this comfort zone. We are okay with our strategy. We are okay with our staff. We are okay with this with the skill we currently have. We don't have to plan for the future. Don't worry about artificial intelligence. Nobody's going to make use of them. Do not worry. However, as the water approached its boiling point, the frog body temperature could no longer keep it up. Now there is something you need to learn about the frog. Frog has the capability to adjust its temperature to the outside temperature. For example, in terms of water, at least frog could stay inside that hot water till around 60 degree or 65 degree without any disruption to his body. However, at 70 degrees Celsius, it could lose some kind of energy and unable to resist the 70 degree or 80 degree or even the 100 degree. Some of us that study science, we understand that once the temperature is from 70 degree and above, the frog is already in problem. And that is exactly what happens to most organizations. They do not change until change comes. And when change occurs, just know that it's already too late. So that's what happened to the frog. So he finally tried to jump out of the pot, but with the water temperature continuing to increase, he didn't have enough energy to make the leap. It was too late for the frog to save itself. So the frog dies inside the water. So what kills the frog? Let me quickly ask you, what do you think killed the frog? Though I have already told you what actually killed the frog, and you already know, probably some of you will say that complacency, lack of inability to change or lack of adaptability, lack of flexibility, a lot. You could begin to say it, or somebody will say overconfidence or lack of awareness. Let me quickly speak on that. They are not, the frog is not aware that it was already in a boiling water. It was not aware. And that is the critical area when it comes to change management. You need to be aware of the environment, of the industry, of the new trends, what is going to happen in the next 5 years, what is not really going to happen in the next 10 years. Exactly. We have to start thinking out of the box. And the question is, who is going to do the thinking? Yes, the management are wired to do the thinking. However, do not forget today we are talking about your role in that kind of change management, in the restructuring, and also the business continuity. So the frog died because of its inability to actually change. So let's quickly move into mode two, HR roles and strategy for managing workforce changes that as it relates to restructuring business continuity. Now, the most important thing about you as you're listening to me right now is for you to understand that you are a driver of change. Yes, you champion the change. You play critical role when it comes to change management in terms of restructuring and also business continuity. And how do you do that? So as HR professional, what you need to start doing starting from today is to assess the current situation in your organization and the impact of the current situation on the now in the next 3 years, like short term and also on the long term. Nobody's going to do that for you. You need to look at the manning of the organization in terms of workforce plan, in the next 5 years, what is the direction of the organization? What is our expansion like in terms of growth, concentration, downsizing, merger and acquisition? You need to start measuring what you have now. Do we have the right skills? What should we do? Do we have the retention strategy? Do we even have succession plan? So what is the future like? So you need to do some kind of assessment, come up with an assessment and present it to the management. They will know that yes, you are thinking like them, especially the one that has to do with workforce or human planning. Then the second one has to do with plan HR initiatives around your recruitment, or let's just say around your talent management, from the acquisition down to the offboarding. You need to do something around it in terms of training and development, in terms of redeployment, compensation. You need to do something about it. Do not change when the change has already called for it. It will be already too late. So come up with a strategy, even though you are not getting a buy-in now, but send it to the management. Let them know that, yes, you are thinking about the future. They might not really do something about it, but they knew that you've sent something to them. Then you implement a communication strategy, because in change management or restructuring and business continuity, something that is so critical that you need to play that role very well is communication, because you'll be the one driving the change through communication. So you need to come up with a communication strategy. If you have a communication team, you need to team up with them, the communication and branding team, team up with them, work with with the stakeholders and communicate change effectively. As a matter of fact, you need to communicate it earlier. Once you identify it, start communicating it, start doing training around it, and that is how it works. Then you monitor, you track the impact and adjust as needed. So do not forget, you could do communication plan, HR plan, the assessment of the current situation and the future situation. You have to have a plan. You call it restructuring plan, and you call it a business continuity plan. Where I've worked before, I happen to be a business continuity champion for my group in training and development. And, I could remember that time that we asked us for risk register. I don't know whether your organization has a risk register. We submit this risk register every month. Then beyond that, we also ask us for business continuity plan. They have they give us a particular a Z sheet whereby we document all of those things. I champion all of those things. It makes our work beautiful. I'm funny what is happening. A lot of changes were happening, and we know where we are very weak, and we know where we have strength, because we saw all this book, we saw the risk, we saw the where we can have disruption in what we do. We know where we need to bridge the gap, and we know where our investment needs to go. So what do you need to do right now? By the time you get back to your organization, walk up to your risk team and come up with this risk register, come up with a business continuity register. Ask your management, in the next 5 or 10 years, are we going into merger? Are we going into acquisition? What is the growth like? How far are we growing? So you need to do some of this kind of brain work, and this is why you are a driver of this change. Another area of the critical roles of the HR, you become a strategic partner whereby you align the strategies of the HR with the business goals. So you need to understand the business goal, develop your business acumen in such a way that you understand the financials, you understand the operation, especially in terms of the balance scorecard area, the financials, the customers, focus, the operation, the processes, and also the culture. So you become a strategic partner in the boardroom. Then you become a change agent whereby you facilitate smooth transitions. As a matter of fact, at that stage, you develop communication plan, you understand all the policies, and you know how to communicate them effectively. Then you become an employee advocate whereby you manage morale and engagement, because whether you like it or not, changes always come with either positive morale or negative morale. Then you must be an employee advocate, people champion. Then the last one has to do with operational excellence. You need to oversee all the HR functions like recruitment, redeployment, and exit excellently. And I quickly want to say something around recruitment, because most of the time, restructuring and business continuity most of the time does not really ends up in you recruiting. It has to do with downsizing. So you need to manage it more effectively. And we are still going to look at this. Okay. Let's quickly go back to all the different restructuring strategy we have looked into. And let's look at what you can do in each of the strategy. From the growth, let's look at what you can do. Number one, it has to do with either you're recruiting Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start the video now. I've been asked to start my video. Okay, thank you. So in terms of growth, you recruit and okay, sorry, apology. Let me go back to my slide. Okay, recruitment, I've talked about that. How do you retain top talent? Now, around recruitment, something must come to your mind. Because if you are going to downsize or probably lay off or any way possible with some staff, you need to ask this question: who has the critical knowledge in terms of the way we work or the types of culture within the staff? You need to know them. Your culture champion, your knowledge management area champion. You need to understand all of this so that you don't let them go. Okay. Okay, I'm still going to use because it's already in the news, like the First Bank now, that they are laying off almost all the senior management. I know they would have looked into what I'm talking to you now before they do that. Probably they have done a lot of coaching, mentoring before they even go into something like this, so that they will understand that they are not actually sending all those critical talent away and without any, replacement for them. So you need to look at this arena. So then how do we, when we are growing, how do we want to compete in terms of compensation or benefit? Then what of the performance management? Then in the area of concentration, you need to focus on supporting retained business units, recruit and retain key employees, especially those that understand your processes, your culture, and you wouldn't have to spend too much to retain them. And then in terms of downsizing, you need to manage layoff ethically, ensure fairness, compliance, and minimize legal risk, because you know what is happening, especially in that group. You see how organizations are paying a lot of money when they didn't do downsizing with the eyes of the legal area. And at the end of the day, it end up they start losing money. So we have the major acquisition in such a way that you have to look at culture critically. So you create policies, goals, identify redundancy, and manage layoff, so that the critical role you actually needs to perform. So let's look at it in a more deeper level. In terms of workforce planning, you assess the skill gaps and redundancies, because if you see any redundancy, all you need to do is this: go and review the what do I call it now? Your job description, your sort of specification. You need to do something around it so that probably you are going to merge roles together. I could remember that time in one bank like that. Sorry, I'm a banker, so apologize if I'm using banking. Yeah, I have to use what I know very well. So I could remember that time the bank actually want to scrap some bank want to scrap the area of teller, you know, customer service. They want to find a way to harmonize the role. So they have to sack some people. And, the head of tellers, so many people, they just sack them because they realize that it's causing redundancy within the organization. So you need to understand how to do that. And you need a lot of workforce planning. Then you create role realignment plans, and haven't done your workforce planning effectively, and you determine which skills you need the most, which people needs to go, which those you need to retain, and how you need to plan for the next 3, 5, 10, or 20 years. Then I told you about communication strategy, whereby you build a transparent communication plan to reduce uncertainty, and you are the one that will drive all of those communication plan. Then we have the talent retention strategy: identify key talent and create retention plans for them. You can create a reward system, recognition system. You can bring in other offer, like probably share offer, um car offer. You can do so many things around it whereby people feel like, okay, I think let me stay in this organization. Then we have the employee support in terms of counseling, EAP, career transition, assistance, mentoring, coaching. Let it come that well-being programs that they come in. Then we have the compliance and legal, whereby you ensure layoff or changes comply with labor laws. If possible, work with your legal team for you to understand that area. Anywhere you are confused, do not go ahead until you get the legal team involved. That is the most important advice I can give. So what are your role in business continuity? We have risk mitigation. I've just talked about that. You need to get risk register, develop a business continuity plan. These are things you can sit down with your risk. And if you don't have a risk team, you can sit down probably with consultant and come up with one. And or you advise the management that they need to get a business continuity. As a matter of fact, there must be a business continuity unit which has to do with the risk team, whereby you identify and mitigate people-related risk, even operational risk. You identify all of them and mitigate against them. Then you need to have workforce agility, ability to adapt, and you need to build cross-functional teams and upskilling plans, and not just upskilling plans, even reskilling plans. Sorry, I didn't put that in. So because the most important thing, those organizations built to last are those that are flexible, agile, and adaptable. Then you need to develop crisis communication plan and for emergencies. And a lot of things can happen in an organization. What happens if there is a fire in the HR department? So what it means right now is set up business continuity team, even within the HR team. And for example, some people can begin to scan some document and store it in your drive. As a matter of fact, if your processes is manual, find the way to scan all those things called manual, anything manuals in terms of the documentation, find the way, immediately you are documenting the particular staff profile, anything, scan them and put them in your drive and ensure that you guys have control over your drive so that if there is a fire outbreak, you could still access the drive and everything will be intact. If there's anything you need to do on that business continuity, is for you to go and ensure that you put in place every document you have that are physical, that are not being converted to soft copy, that can be stored in your drive or external drive. Please go and do something about it, because there's an ongoing policy now around data protection, and it's a serious one. And I will not lie to you, if they ask some kind of document processes and you don't have a way to talk about it, they can find your organization. The last bank they find, it runs into billions of naira. So you need to do something about that. Yeah. Then employee well-being, provide mental health and financial support during disruptions. So, and policy development, update policies for flexible work, remote setup, etc. Now, I know that most organizations say that the reason why they cancel flexible work or hybrid work is because of low productivity. But what my research showed that most organizations did not really know how to implement flexible work. And there are processes into it. And the reason why you need to try to find the way to make it work is because of disruptions. Let's assume that we enter the second time, what we experienced in 2020, COVID-19. And if COVID-19 didn't go for 1 year or 2 years, can your business still survive? Will you still have a job? So we need to start finding a way to encourage flexible work, whereby we train people. We did not just train people, we give them the right tools to succeed, and monthly, weekly, quarterly, we train them on how they can be productive doing flexible work or remote working. I will not lie to you, a lot of organizations that are doing flexible work, that have mastered it, they have achieved mastery, they are getting a lot of productivity. Somebody like me, I become more productive when I'm working flexibly. Yeah, that's it. Let's go to the last one, HR best practices. When we talk about practices, we are talking about the behavior around what we are trying to do. While we set strategy, there must be a behavior around it. Okay, so that is what we just want to look into now. So during restructuring, you need to align talent needs with organizational goals. That alignment is very important. You need to communicate and engage employees early in the process, because if you don't do that, you can have a flaw. If your organization is going into a merger, okay, and you know that this is going to happen, who should hear first? Your employees. They shouldn't be hearing on social media or be hearing from the third party. It's not good for your organization, because it's going to disrupt so many things. Restructuring shouldn't lead to disruptions. Okay, it should be well managed. How do you do that? You communicate and engage employees early in the process. You leverage data to inform decisions. And I want to encourage all HR professional here, please do not joke with data. I am a champion when it's go to data analytics. As a matter of fact, I love it. And any organization I work, I ensure that we get our data right in our organization, especially if I am part of the HR team. Then you focus on empathy and transparency. When you want to downsize, it should be ethical downsizing. You need to understand, equity and fairness. Then effective cultural integration, continuous learning of upskilling. It has to be continuous. Then continuously monitor and adapt plans. So you're not just going to have one plan for everything. Yeah, you need to learn when you need to change plan or adapt it. And the next one is best practices during business continuity. The first thing you need to do, which is very important, is to develop a robust business continuity plan with cross-training for critical roles. Now listen, if your organization don't have it, you need to go and develop it, okay? Just sit down with your team, the legal, the risk, the strategy team. Within 1 week, you can begin to come up with one, okay? And it requires a lot of assessment. Where are we weak? Where are we strong? What happened in the next 5 years or 10 years or 20 years? These are things you need to do. It is not negotiable. Set up business continuity team and champions in all departments. So you can tell them, please, because we are planning for business continuity, as we speak right now, every department should send their business continuity champion, okay? Data backup plan and recovery strategy, is a must for you. That's what I call it, best practices. Things you must do after now. So you need to have a data backup. If possible, go back to your organization, ask your head of HR. If you're head of HR, talk to your team. Let's assume S1 and Z happen in this organization. What position are we going to be in our data? Do we lose them or do we have them? Crisis communication plan must be set up. If there's a fire somewhere, how do we communicate it? Because, at times people might not check their email during fire outbreak. People that are not going to check their emails. So you must find a way to put all this communication around, like there should be a place that somebody can go and communicate, okay? So the hello, attention, there's a fire, S, Y, and Z, so you do that. And it could be hackers could hack your organization softwares. So what happens if hackers hack your organization software? How do you go about it? I remember, was it last year, the issue of one, there's a one that is managing the network of most organizations. It was down. And I remember that there was a lot of disruptions in all organizations. And I remember that after what happened last year, some organization has moved their network architecture from one, and they are trying to build locally so that what happened then will not happen again. Some lose a lot of money due to such occurrence. So the question is, I don't know the organization you are relying on for your data, for your network architecture, or even your IT, architecture and capabilities. So you need to have alternative. What happens if there's a failure in these services? What happens if people bring down our website or they hack our website? What happens next? So these are the things you need to start working at. Then workforce flexibility, employee safety and well-being, technology enablement. Oh, I love that. I love that. I remember, in fact, I'm usually lucky. Every organization I work, they always they always give us digital transformation initiatives. Where I worked the last time, they told us that we must train 30% of the workforce in digital skills. So we are trying to empower people with digital skills. Where I am currently, I can remember the MD told me, Fola, we are going to do 100%. And I'm ready for it. Everybody, let's begin to do it. So do the assessment of data mindset and digital capability in your organization. Do you have the requirement? Do you have people with digital skills so that when you need to scale and compete, we have talent to compete that you would need to use to compete. Then we have the ethical downsizing. Please avoid legal issues around that area. Comply with regulations. Continuous learning and upskilling. Continuous monitor and adapt plans. Wow, I am already rounding up so that we can give room for, a lot of questions and more contributions. So here's my final words. HR is pivotal in both restructuring and business continuity. Effective communication and employee engagement are critical. I will repeat again, one of your core role and responsibility in restructuring and business continuity is communication. So, and employee engagement. Then there must be collaboration between you and the leadership to ensure alignment with business goals. You need to ensure that you leverage on technology and tools, because we are not praying the bad things to happen, but bad things does happen. So you need to start leveraging on tools, technology, digital capabilities that can help you to survive disruptions. And please, you need to ensure that you use the best practices to streamline your processes and perform your duty. I want to say a big thank you to everyone that has been listening to me. So what we do right now is to listen to some questions. Apart from that, is also to welcome, contributions. And I know that there's going to be a lot of questions in this place today, and I am open to that. Thank God I am not the only one in this place. You can share what is you might not really mention the name of your organization, but bring up issues that has to do with things that can lead to restructuring, probably your organization at the growth stage, concentration stage, or you think you are moving into downsizing, or you are moving into merger and acquisition. There are a lot of people here that have done merger and acquisition before. There are a lot of people that have been in the good life. For example, somebody like me now, the organization I am currently in now, we are at the stage of growth and massive one. We don't know what's going to happen next, but it's a massive growth, and we are always in need of talent. We have to ensure retention strategy. We keep training, upskilling, and a lot of things like that. So I don't know the stage that your organization is and the strategy you need to build. What of business disruption? Where do you think you are very weak? Let's begin to have this conversation. So I think the floor is open. So thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Adeosun. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for that excellent presentation.
You're
That was
welcome.
massive, very massive. Well done, great job. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you raise your hands, we will recognize you and you will have the floor. Also, if you like or you prefer to type in your question, please, we are checking the chat box right now to see if there are any questions you may want our highly esteemed facilitator to respond to. Of course, if you also like to share your work experience along the subject matter of tonight, you are also welcome to do so. Please kindly raise your hands and we will also recognize you. I'm checking to see if there are any virtual hands up and also checking to see if there are any messages. We are also happy to wrap up and say the grace. We are open to all options, still checking. Oh, I would have been surprised if nobody decided to raise their hands. I
In
think I
fact,
can
it is
see a
very
hand.
important we have this conversation so that it could be like a deep knowledge sharing. Let's do this because restructuring and business continuity
You have the floor.
happens to all of us.
Okay, good
You
evening,
can
everybody.
speak. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much for the insightful session. Yes, currently at my workplace, there's this tussle between the audit, risk compliance, and the HR on who the driver for business continuity is. Because the audit keeps sending mails to HR to design and like put together a business continuity plan. So is it the audit, HR, or the IT that is the driver
Thank you so
in
much.
charge of business continuity?
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know how large your organization is, but as I speak to you right now, there should be a team called the risk team. So under the risk team, they have the business continuity team. They have the enterprise team. They have operational risk team. So it depends on how large the organization is. But the truth of the matter is, with the way you are talking to me right now, I could see that the people that actually champion it, you did not mention them. So the question now is, who is next? And that is why we're having this conversation. Let me look at compliance. Can compliance do it? Although compliance has a lot of role that they perform, as a matter of fact, they also monitor, they work with the risk to ensure business continuity. So really, with what you have just mentioned to me now, if you don't have the risk team in your organization, or probably let me ask you that question, do you have risk team in your organization? Because you didn't mention it.
Okay, yes, we have a, it's a audit, risk, and compliance. They're all into one. And we have two members managing that department.
Since you have mentioned risk, if they combine them together, so go and meet them. Somebody should be responsible for risk, so they are the one in charge. So probably that unit or group, they are the one in charge, okay? So go and have stakeholder engagement with them. That's how we call you. You are the driver of that change. Hope I've mentioned that today, right? You are the driver of that change. So schedule a meeting with them and clarify the role that they play. And when it comes to business continuity, it's very simple. They need to come up with a risk register. They need to come up with business continuity plan. Sit down with them. And probably after now, if you need my support around that, I can tell you what and what you need to do. And you can support, go and sit down with them. Any one of them should have done it before. So sit down with them, you will get that document out. Okay? Is that correct? Are you okay with that? Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Samuel, you have the floor. Samuel, you have the floor.
Okay, good evening, sir. Thank you very much for your laid.
Hello, I can't hear you again. Are we still together?
Learned a lot.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Yes.
Hello.
I have learned a lot. Hello. Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Yes. So there's a difference between right sizing and downsizing, the way I understand it, or the way I was taught. So which is the best practice when it comes to restructuring of an organization? Using the first bank as case study, knowing that if you are going to lay out or let go of the senior management team that has been driving the organization for long, looking at their experience, what they are taking out, is it of advantage of the organization? And secondly, in the compensation plan, in a situation whereby the management or the people you are laying off have been doing what they are supposed to do, kind of their tasks, have been meeting up with targets, and you are laying them off, wouldn't there be a form of litigation? I don't know, which is that the best practice when it comes to restructuring, looking at the experience, the downsizing or right sizing? That's my business.
Okay, thank you so much. One of the key strategy for restructuring is downsizing. Okay, it's one of the major key strategy. Then another thing you need to know is that people do not just execute those strategy without plan. Okay, so there must be a restructuring plan. And part of the plan would have been succession plan. So before we sack somebody, somebody who has lived probably all his life with us, has our culture, has our knowledge, has our asset, everything that we ever think of, they have them. Okay, so there might have been succession plan, although I am not a first bank, but I know that anybody doing that would have put some things in place. Number one, succession plan. Number two, they would have done some kind of mentoring, coaching, and upskilling so that those people in the succession pipeline, they will be able to fill the critical roles that they are downsizing. Am I communicating with you? Then downsizing also come with compensation, and they would have planned it. I remember that CBN said they are paying, they just announced the billion of naira they are paying all their directors that they are letting go. So they will have planned that. So the question is this: do they plan it very well? Was it well planned, and was it well executed? I know that First Bank has resilience when it comes, because they have been around for too long, and I know that anybody championing that restructuring, would have been very, very good. There's a possibility that they might be using a consultant to do that. And it's not something that they just wake up to do. Because if you do that you just wake up out of the blue moon and do it, it's going to be, because at the end of the day, restructuring, we just leads to disruption. It's going to be massive. People, voluntary resignations, low morale and disengagement can begin to happen. And these are the things people begin to deal with. Then in terms of compensation, if they didn't do it rightly, they didn't compensate them enough rightly, then they don't just know what is happening, legal issues begin to crop up. So restructuring is not something you just sleep, wake up and do. So I want to believe that it's a case study for us. We just understand that the job just started. Somebody like me now, I've started, I've put them into my case study. So I want to look at what is going to happen in the next 5 years and in the next 10 years. So all of us here, let's start learning. Let's start looking at what is happening in CBN. There are other people, other organizations. So people try it and they are unable to get away with it. So for them, downsizing is a key. Thank you, Ms. Dr. Luyemi. I wanted to say it. Sorry, let's not mention organization because our video is going to the social media. Let's try to downplay mentioning organization. So thank you so much. So please, off the record. Thank you. So let me repeat myself again. Any organization going into restructuring, in case Dr. Oluyemi wants to edit, any organization going into restructuring must plan it very well. It must be well planned, communication plan, compensation plan, legal issues, engagement, retention strategy. All of this must be put in place. And a lot go into that. Do not just wake up and do it. It requires a lot of planning. You have to set, just like we have business continuity committee, there must be restructuring committee. And these people must meet to assess all situations, all conditions, plan a lot of scenarios. Scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. You have to do it. So if it leads to disruption, then you must have your business continuity plans in place. So all of this must work together and for it to actually happen. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for that brilliant submission and for the entire session you have had with us today. I'll just say a few things very quickly around restructuring from HR perspective, just so that we add one or two things to the plenty things we've had today. I'd like us to know that sometimes there may be motives that may not be purely altruistic. There are stakeholders in boards, in organizations, in government, and so on and so forth. And when people have majority interests, they may not necessarily be comfortable with some people from the legacy institution. And to a large extent, this can be rational. It's just that if I and Fola Vincent, we buy Google tomorrow, I'm sure one of the first things we'll do is that we take out the CFO of Google and we'll put in our guy there. Why? We want to be sure that the person in charge of our money is our person. And this is not sentiment. Again, I want us to, as HR, to always be, I'm trying to choose my word carefully, extra reasonable. If you are the one that puts in so much money to get majority shareholders, so won't you want to put in key positions, maybe people you have been working with over 10, 20, 30 years in your own past into this present investment? It looks logical. And organizations that have been around and people who have worked in very high-stake organizations know that these are inevitable potential outcomes of any professional at any point in time. The good thing is, like you have said, these people are typically very experienced and they also have options. I'm sure by the time some other institutions hear about the availability of some of these core employees, they will snap them like this. Some will even get better deals, it can be international deals, and so on and so forth. Let me also quickly add that when you are dealing with restructuring, especially in structured organization. When I say structured, I'm not really speaking to owner manager that we popularly call one-man business. You also do engagement with all stakeholders. In some instances, the stakeholder can be the regulator. You must engage with them upfront. See, another stakeholder in some instances, or all instances, are the employees, typically through the union or the different layers and segments of the employees. Because if a potential outcome of your restructuring is downsizing, that means in labor, we call it what? Redundancy. You probably create certain layers of redundancy, sometimes typical at higher levels. What you need to do is you need to agree on the redundancy package. Sometimes you will have to agree with the union or the stakeholders upfront so that when you are paying them their severance package, everybody is happy. Everybody smiles to the bank. The other thing I would just like to add, even though it has been said, but sometimes when you hear something from another person, it may embellish or enrich your knowledge, is that most of the time, from my own experience, especially big organizations, when they lay off, guess what usually follows? They always hire. I'm talking from my own experience now, and I'm talking about public information. You will just hear that so organization laid off 200 people. Check in 3 months. The problem is when people are sacked, they make noise. We've been sacked too. When people are employed, they don't make noise. Similarly, when big organizations do massive promotions, if you are not in their cycle, you won't hear. But let them sack 20 people. You will think they sack 2,000 people. So what happens is that they will most likely lay off people who are been in the system for long and then hire generally slightly younger people. So there's this net gain of, so to speak, cheaper wages. But some people will say, oh, but what about the net loss of experience? But there's also this net gain of agility, youthfulness, innovation, risk taking. You understand? So all these things will have been put into consideration by the restructuring team. And most big organizations too, like Fola Vincent aptly said, use the services of consultants, typical Big Four or other global consultants who have had experience. And this will be probably my final comment before we just appreciate our facilitator, our ever reliable facilitator. Take any typical merger and acquisition. You will see 1 or 2 consulting firms in the process. Because it's, to be honest, it can be a very tedious, rigorous, laborious process. There are instances where some merger and acquisition that came to fruition took 2 years. If you are in the industry, you will have been hearing, I don't want to use the word rumor, but you'll be, for example, 1 or 2 banks we know are about to merge or have merged. People, I'm sure, Fola knows the 2 banks I'm talking about. That process will take 1 year, 2 years. So it's not easy at all. Because if you don't do your due diligences and you don't do your alignments, it can be very challenging. And one of the things there too is that when 2 existing surviving organizations merge, by default, ladies and gentlemen, there will be what we call role overlaps. Organization A, we have head of HR or HR director. Organization B, we also have head of HR or HR director. You can't have 2 head of HR. In some cases, they may be able to now make one the HR director, the other one the deputy HR director, where ego does not weigh in, or where one can easily say, oh, this guy is obviously more senior, more exposed, and the case may be. But redundancies are created. But in many mergers too, because one of the benefits of mergers is that it creates what we call economics of scale. Okay? you now begin to even do more. Because what happens is, if a merger is well done, it's not done from just a political perspective alone. If you do a merger from the economic dimension, what happens is company A has its own competitive advantage. Company B has its own competitive advantage. When you now merge the two competitive advantages together, you will now get even like an exponential advantage, which is A plus B, but it will now turn to A times B. So you may initially downsize in the short run. In the medium term to long term, guess what will happen? You will experience expansion. And you can confirm this from, at least this is a long time ago, we can speak a little freely around it. During the Charles Soludo consolidation era, what first happened is that they first sacked people because banks match. But guess what? All the UPAs, all the GTBs, what happened? All the access, they even became Pan-African, open to Ghana, Gambia, Senegal. So that will now be the cumulative positive effect. I hope I've been able to just share my own 2 cents, just to be sure. Does anyone? I'm tempted to come, Mrs. Rita Babalola. Do you want to say anything? Are you in a position to speak? I know you're on the call. I'll be happy if you have something. If you will say something, you always have something to say. And I always enjoy your contributions every time. All right.
Honestly, I don't really answer questions are asked. Really, I was just enjoying what you were saying, just to follow up with what you're doing. But the presenter did a very great job, simplifying the whole process and made it quite easy. So the only part I could just always explain is the communication and engagement part. You can never get it wrong with always engaging the team, the people on ground. It's quite easy when you are restructuring, when there is a change moment for the gladiators, the power changers, the power block people to always want to go with their own narratives. So it's always good not to overlook or underplay communication strategies or plan that you have on ground. And one of the key ways is always to engage even the lower level people. Sometimes they carry the weight of the whole organization. They can, like they say, bad news travel fast more than the good news. And when you allow the bad news, the grapevine, to have the control of the communication channel, they tend to kind of cause more havoc than what the original plan of the whole strategic plan has always been. So the one thing is engagement. It can never to be undercut or underplayed. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sir, do you have any reactions to either the few things I've said or the few things Mrs. Babola has said before we wrap up? Any reactions or closing thoughts?
No, I don't have anything. I think I love that we have been able to share deep knowledge and insight into what we have discussed today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for being such a blessing to us, sharing from your wealth and depth of knowledge and experience. Ladies and gentlemen, we can all unmute and say thank you to our facilitator for this evening. Please.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We enjoyed the class. Thank you.
Thank you so
much. God bless you.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the insightful teaching.